So what if you're in a marriage that you're totally committed to, but really not enjoying or appreciating? You're unhappy, but it is quite a stable situation and you aren't leaving. How can you make the most of this situation? We'll talk about how folks find themselves in a spot like this and how to make the most of it.
The Marriage Podcast for Smart People is designed to help busy couples like yourselves move away from conflict and unhappiness to build a marriage you'll love today and treasure for a lifetime. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Learn how you can help save marriages, prevent divorces, and keep families intact by going to oyf.support. Once again, that website is oyf.support. And now, here are your hosts, Caleb and Valinda Simone Gandel from Only You Forever.
Welcome to the Marriage Podcast for Smart People. If you want to build a thriving, passionate marriage, we've got the research, the truth, and the answers you're looking for. We have a hopeful episode for you this week. This is episode number 228, and today we're going to be talking about how to make the most of an unhappy marriage.
Hey there, before we get started, if you missed last week's episode, we discussed what to do when your spouse doesn't share your spiritual values. It's worth going back and checking out. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming shows from us.
If you're struggling with your marriage, we offer sound, research-based advice, and most of all, we offer hope.
In our hopeful episode this week.
Yeah, let's get into this, Valinda. How to make the most of an unhappy marriage.
Okay.
So just to kind of wrap some perspective about this, or maybe a better way to categorize stuff. Marital quality, you can think about it in terms of marital satisfaction and then marital stability. It kind of has those two things to it. Okay. And so you can kind of make a grid with those things where you have high quality, low quality on the top, and then maybe high stability, low stability on the side. So then you have four kinds of experiences. One is where there's high satisfaction and high stability in the marriage.
Yeah.
Another one where there's high satisfaction, but there's low stability. Tends to go south on you every once in a while.
Okay.
But generally, you're really happy to be married. And then there's low satisfaction with high stability.
Okay.
And there's low satisfaction with low stability. Means it's not going well.
Not going well, yeah.
Now, what we're talking about today is really that third category of low satisfaction, high stability.
Where things are long-term unhappy.
Yeah, probably, quite committed, right? Mm-hmm. I think Christian marriages are more vulnerable to this because we're so committed to the covenant of marriage, and yet at the same time we're not always able to, or maybe we aren't as committed to keeping that marriage kind of
vibrant and fresh and passionate.
Exactly.
So why do they stay?
Well, there's a few reasons. There's reasons for staying and reasons or barriers to leaving. That's what keeps people in these kinds of situations. So some of the reasons to stay include economic reasons. So you might be financially much better off staying, even if you're not happy in the marriage.
Okay.
It could be familiarity with it. So again, even if you're not truly happy, there's after a lot of years together, it's predictable. You can appreciate the stability and the routine of life. That's there and so on. And then, like I mentioned, the belief that marriage is sacred. So your religious or your faith-based commitment to your marriage may keep you there as well. So those are reasons to stay.
They almost sounds like barriers to leaving.
Well,
like I can't leave because marriage is sacred and I need to stay.
Yeah. It's the old debate about offense. Is it to keep people in or keep people out, right?
Oh.
So not necessarily a bad thing.
I've never had a debate
Depends
about
how you look at it.
Okay.
So, and then there's barriers to leaving, such as the fear of being single or not being able to find another spouse.
Okay.
The expected stigma around divorce. How about inability or doubts about your own capability to fend for yourself? So what if your spouse is the main earner or has had a career for 30 years and you haven't, right?
Yeah.
Or what if they handle very important household issues and you don't know how you'd sort of, you've never figured out that part of life. You'd have to do that on your own, right? So those can be barriers.
Okay.
Not wanting to distress your children, even adult children.
Mm-hmm.
Can be a point here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to dive into a lot of this today, but for those of us that are supporting us through Patreon, as another thank you this week, our worksheet complements this episode by stepping you through two very important areas to consider in a situation like this. So first of all, we help you search for the positive reasons for staying, and that gives you a subtle shift all by itself. It can make a big difference in marital satisfaction, but then we also ask you to consider how you might challenge yourself to grow despite your situation or in your situation. And again, that's a reframe here that'll help you make shifts within yourself. And often when that occurs, the marriage sometimes will move to a better place as well.
Okay.
So it's just that kind of neat dynamic of marriage where you know that you can't change your spouse, but if you change yourself,
so even how you think.
Yeah. other things will likely to change too. So if you're feeling hopeless, looking for a place to start, you'll definitely want to get your hands on this worksheet. If you're not already a patron, you can get this worksheet and become a patron of the Marriage Podcast for Smart People. We'd love to have you join us in that, and we'll take a quick break here to tell you more about that.
What happens when the fairy tale marriage meets reality? Too often, high expectations lead to disappointment, communication breaks down, and the struggles of day-to-day life become overwhelming, leaving you feeling lost and without hope. Unfortunately, marriage does not come with an instruction manual. Marriage troubles are deeply personal and can take a toll on you, your spouse, and your family. Counseling can be expensive, and divorce is very costly. It doesn't have to be this way. Caleb and Valinda understand your pain and frustration. Their mission is to help save as many marriages as possible, and to date, thousands of couples are helped through their weekly podcast. But the most important marriage they want to help save is yours. With a minimum of a $10 investment a month, you gain access to exclusive bonus content and valuable information to help you succeed in your own marriage. Learn more about saving marriages and how you can help at oyf.support. That's oyf.support.
You're listening to the Marriage Podcast for Smart People. Before the break, we were talking about reasons to stay and barriers to leaving. So let's talk about how to make the most of this, Verlinda.
Okay.
And we have several points here. Number one, find a positive reason to stay. So a couple of researchers in 2004, they interviewed unhappy couples about why they stay together. Kind of an interesting study. Mm-hmm. And they found that couples whose only reasons to stay together were barriers to leaving were actually much more likely to end up divorced. So the barriers aren't enough.
Like, because that's the only thing holding you together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to make the most of it, if you want to try to turn this thing around, try to move past just the barriers to looking for positive reasons to stay together, rather than holding the mentality that I'm just here because I have no choice.
Okay.
So for example, wanting to stay in the marriage because you believe that God values your marriage and he values your efforts to stay together. Now we're infusing some meaning, some purpose into the struggle that you're in, right?
Okay.
That's probably a more adaptive way of thinking about things than only staying together because you think divorce is a sin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
See where we're going there? So, really working on those positive reasons to stay. Second thing to note is that it's often better than divorce. And, again, we're on a podcast here speaking to a very wide audience of people. So I'm sure some might be listening to that and thinking like, yeah, right. You have no idea.
Right. Yeah.
So, and as we're encouraging you to stay here, like we understand that there's situations that are really extreme of, continued unfaithfulness or sex addiction or abuse and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So we're not asking anybody to kind of die. You might be alive, but you're just killing yourself by staying. But just think through some of these options with us for those that are just going through a season where your marriage is tough.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That's particularly the crowd that we want to talk to. So couples may be able to take comfort from the fact that staying together is often better for you than divorce. Again, another group of researchers in a study in 2002 found that even in unhappily married couples, divorce generally did not increase their levels of happiness or life satisfaction. So there's a real idea out there that, divorce is the magic handle that you pull that takes you out of unhappiness and back into happiness. And
but that's not reality.
The facts don't bear that out. It's a very difficult, heart-rending process with many implications, which is why we try to help people save their marriages.
Okay.
So sticking together and working on issues is often the best thing to do. A third thing to consider is not disengaging, which is very easy to do in a situation like this because couples in an unhappy marriage often end up withdrawing away from each other.
Okay.
That leads to a breakdown in communication. That ultimately makes divorce much more likely. Mm-hmm. Our recommendation is that you try to keep talking and engaging with each other, even if you are unhappy.
And how does that go for?
It's just the gentle effort. This is not an aggressive and intrusive sort of...
So this isn't like fighting all the time is better than being quiet.
Yeah.
But this is just being friendly.
Yes. Even if you can't manage to develop a lot of closeness and it's not what you hoped it would be, that friendliness, that respect, it'll make the situation much more bearable.
Okay.
And then a fourth option, accepting who your spouse is. So spouses in long-term unhappy marriages can think about trying to accept the person that their spouse is rather than trying to change their spouse or remaining bitter about what you wish your spouse was or what you wish they were like.
Okay. So accepting them for who they are.
Trying to change them often ends in resentment or conflict.
Right. Because you can't change someone who doesn't want to change.
Like you're going to resent if they don't change, or they're going to resent you trying to change them because you don't accept them, right?
Yeah.
But then accepting and supporting as much of who they are can improve how you relate to them. And then that frees you as well from the responsibility of who they are and what they do. So you don't have to take responsibility for that part. It's a little bit of differentiation there.
Yeah.
Another effective strategy, kind of along the same lines, but directed internally, is instead of trying to change your spouse, work on developing yourself as a person. And so looking for ways to increase your own happiness, your competence in the world, your self-worth, self-esteem, that kind of thing, will mean that these qualities, as they're developed in you, they'll be reflected back into your marriage as well. So people in long-term unhappy marriages, not all of them, but many of them are often insecurely attached, as one example, which is a style of relating to your significant other. And they're often struggling with anxiety and or low self-worth. And those are things that you can pursue healing for without needing your spouse to change, which is going to change how you interact inside of your marriage and how you experience your marriage.
Okay.
And it's generally going to leave you feeling better about the other areas of life where you're relating to people too. And so that personal growth, where you can get really frustrated about your spouse not changing, just remember that there's a lot you could still do for yourself in this situation that might make it much more bearable. And who knows, it might shift the nature, the kind of the character of the marriage too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then kind of finishing off with a note of hope. So research shows that even in marriages that have been unhappy for a long time, there's still hope that things can turn around. And I don't mean whatever hope, just pay attention to this survey. This was from Waite et al. In 2002. They surveyed 645 couples who rated their marriages unhappy. And then they tracked those couples for another 5 years to see how they did. And they found that 2 out of the 3 couples who rated themselves as unhappy at the start of the study ended up describing their marriages as happy after 5 years. 2/3 of the couples, it changed over 5 years.
Improved over the 5 years.
Yes. Yeah, improved.
Yeah.
So it may just be a season of life, or maybe other circumstances that have come in. I don't know, obviously, what the situations of all our listeners are, but it's easy to lose hope. And yet understanding that many marriages do have dry seasons, and understanding that with commitment, with investment, those marriages, they can return to a happier place. I mean, that's a good thing to know.
So what I want to know is, why are we just, try and think of your marriage differently to make it bearable? Why aren't we saying, give them X, Y, Z to make it happy? Oh,
I see. Well, this is, I guess the assumption behind the title or the subject matter here is that it feels fairly stuck, and you don't feel like, so marriage counseling isn't really on the table, going to marriage seminars or coming on our cruise in 2020 is not on the table.
That should totally be on the table.
It should be, but what if it's not, right?
Then they'll never have a happy marriage.
Yeah, so
No.
Yeah, don't feel manipulated at all there, people.
No.
So anyways, this is, sometimes you have to bear the burden. Not everything can be fixed when you want it to be fixed. And I think that in what we've suggested today, there's enough subtle shifts that could result in a larger shift too. Like you think about doing your personal work,
right?
About appreciating as much of your spouse as you can. Like these are kind of sort of subtle habits that are going to change the tone.
And that might make it happy in the end rather than just bearable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to leave them with a final round of advice?
Well, I don't have any advice. Well, I would just say
you don't have any advice?
Shut up. But no, I just think I don't know if I could be content with bearable. So go all in.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't know. I just kind of well, this is your personality too though, right?
Yeah.
So you don't tolerate a lot of guff, and you tend to push for change when you don't like how things are.
Okay.
But not everybody, but you're speaking that out of a place of empowerment already.
Okay.
Right? Like you have leverage in our marriage. So not everyone who's listening today might feel like they have leverage in their marriage to make change. Maybe differences in personality, maybe the unique situation with regards to their spouse, right? But they're still very committed, and so they need to kind of do their best and hunker down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you want a pep talk, shoot us an email. We'll get Verlinda to give you a call. And she'll get you all charged up.
But I guess that's true. You can't change somebody who doesn't want changed. That doesn't want help.
Yeah.
Right? But you can change yourself.
You can.
But sometimes it'll just going to feel but you know what? It's their fault.
Yeah. Okay,
so that's really hard to...
Or it's the other person's keeping you stuck?
Yeah. So that's really hard to be okay, that's just who they are, and I'm going to accept that. Don't you think that would be really hard to do?
Yeah, but sometimes you notice people that get they're so intolerant of their spouse that even the acceptable parts of their spouse that other people can enjoy, they can't.
Oh, I see.
Right?
I
So
see.
we can shift that in yourself without needing your spouse to change.
Okay.
Right?
So
You just
could
get
it
mad or
even
bitter.
be like maybe as a spouse that they're not a great spouse, but they could still be a good person.
Yep.
And so appreciating those
You
parts
could
of
start
them.
there. Good father, or she's a good mother. Mm-hmm. Start there, or good daughter if they don't have kids, right?
Or a good friend or
Yep. Yep.
okay.
So you just need kind of some toeholds for the positivity. I mean, we talked quite a bit about positivity in one of our
And
episodes
be
a
generous
long time
to
ago.
them,
Yeah.
giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
Or it could be too that you're a terrible spouse yourself.
Yeah.
Or I'm talking about like me. I wasn't blaming you.
That was subtle, Verlinda.
No.
Subtle.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, it could be. And again, so if because we have blind spots, right? So
Yeah.
again, working on yourself may help the marriage quite a bit more than you thought it would in that case, right?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you're hard to be married to. Uh-huh. I mean, maybe I'm hard to be married to.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. I'm okay with that now.
Okay. Good. But remember, so in my defense, I was talking about low satisfaction, high stability, right? So this is already
Right.
a situation where it's pretty stable, but it's just not very satisfying.
Right.
But then, at the flip side, in support of your perspective, you might be able to leverage that commitment by putting some pressure on the,
Yeah. Like we're committed. Let's make the best of it. Let's make the most of it.
Yeah.
Like wherever you are, be all there.
Oh, that's
so
my
if you're
girl.
married,
Married? Yeah.
then you need to be like all married. No, that doesn't sound right. Be all in for the marriage.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
And then we'll all return to a happier place.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up here, Verlinda.
Okay.
I neglected to pull in our patrons, so apologies to those of you that did join us. We will catch you next time, and we want to again thank all of our patrons for their ongoing support
Yeah.
as we continue to reach couples.
So if you want help with any of these things as an individual or as a couple that we've been talking about today, do feel free to reach out to us through our website at onlyyouforever.com, and we'd be glad to connect you with one of our experienced marriage counselors.
Now, if you call us and you want us to help you fix your spouse, we're not going to get very far. Just for the heads up. But we can help you change because you're there.
Right. Interesting.
All right. Next week, Verlinda, we're talking about cognitive biases and how they impact marriage. Don't be thrown off by the geeky language. Cognitive biases are those subtle ways in which our brains mess with how we see and interpret what's going on around us. It's very important, very fascinating, and you don't even realize it's happening.
Really?
It's like all the radio waves out there. Like,
Yeah.
you need to
And
wear
you're picking up on
tinfoil.
them?
Yeah. So get your tinfoil hats, and we'll see you next week.
We're not geeky at all. That's all for today's episode. You can get the full show notes at oyf.link/228. Find out how you can help marriages. Go to oyf.support. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
The Marriage Podcast for Smart People is totally funded by listeners who support Caleb and Verlinda in their mission to save marriages. If you would like to be part of this worthy cause, open your web browser to oyf.support. A minimum investment of $10 per month will help restore hope to married couples. Plus, as a patron, you'll gain access to exclusive bonus content and valuable information to help you succeed in your own marriage. Go to the website oyf.support now for more information. Thanks for listening to the Marriage Podcast for Smart People from Only You Forever.